This is Daniel Smith from Jets Guru. Welcome to the show. All gas, no brakes. Let's go, Jets.
You know the niggas, when it come to partnership, it's talking shit, shots and shit. Vibe with you, I side with you. This is my scripture. Next to greatness is my picture. I don't like pictures, but trick a finger, just smile, flick you, take your life in them. Guys with you can die with you. I'm a fly figure. Net worth in the 9 figures, like I'm lying. If you know when that line hit you, draw the line, mister. Get out of line, you line skipper. You get line quicker. I'm fitting all of you line sniffers.
What's going on, Jets Nation? CJ the Painkiller D. Simone here, and you are watching Jets Guru. Now, give it up for your host, Mr. Daniel Smith!
All right. CJ the Painkiller D. Simone letting you down.
Yeah.
Promising you Daniel Smith and giving you Kevin and JR.
Hey.
But just as handsome as ever. Just as handsome as ever, everybody out there. And very exciting time of the year in the Jets universe. Got a lot going on, right? Even at the coaches meetings and GM meetings and everything going on around the world. We got OBJ showing up. You got Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show like every week, giving an update on what's happening with the trade. And if he's not on, Pat does. So I think it's getting close, right? I think it's getting close. I don't know if there's an update for those that follow Jets news on Twitter. It's like the same news every day, right? It's like the same story.
It is.
It's funny because, like, when I see people, like, arguing and going back and forth, I'm like, who wants to have the same argument for, like, 2 months? I feel like, I think it's evident now the Jets aren't giving up first-round picks. I think the news is that the Jets will be parting with likely 2 second-round picks.
I could deal with that.
I think, right? I mean, we haven't been to the playoffs in 12 years. So, I mean, if he just breaks that streak, it'll be worth 2 second-round picks. We never draft anyone good in the second round anyways. But then going beyond that, it looks like the Jets want a draft pick back if he retires early, which makes sense, right? We're giving up 2 years worth of picks.
Yeah.
In year 3, let's get one of those back. So from my perspective, I mean, I think that sounds reasonable. Daniel Smith, a.k.a. JR over there. I mean, are you really sweating the draft capital that we'll have to give up for Aaron Rodgers?
Not really. As long as it's not a first round or a first round next year, which it's just not going to be. I'm not sweating it at all. Give me the greatness. Give me the greatness for a year or 2, and I'm happy, man.
Yeah, and if I told you, JR, right, say that we did have to give up a first round next year, but the only way we give up a first is if we win a Super Bowl. Like, are you going to care?
Oh, I would not care.
Would you trade a first-round pick for a New York Jets Super Bowl?
Hey, if I knew he was going to win a Super Bowl, I'd trade this first round, next year's first round. Hell, I'll trade 3. I'll do the RG3 deal.
Yeah, right.
3 first.
To break a 50-year curse of not winning the Super Bowl, you're right, like 3, 4, 5. Like, come on, just give me a playoff run, a Super Bowl victory, and a Super Bowl parade of the Jets.
Right.
Like the middle of New York, right? Times Square, Super Bowl parade with all New York Jet green. I'm giving up the picks. And I think that will be the only way it gets to a first. Might we have to, give up a second round again next year? Again, like, I'm not sweating it. But I do think in terms of everybody saying, when is it going to happen, right? That's
right.
Like Rob just said in the comments.
A week away.
Right? Rob
I think it's going to be another, month or something. I don't know. I think it's drugged out to June for some reason. It's going to be one of these things.
I think before I get to that, I do want to hit that comment. If we have to give up a first-round pick if we win the Super Bowl, it's the 32nd pick in the draft. It's literally the last first-round pick, right?
Right.
Of course I'm giving up the number 32 pick for a Super Bowl ring. Like, get the hell out of here. But going back to what you said, I genuinely think, the Packers got a first-time starter at quarterback after Aaron Rodgers. Do they want the draft picks right now? Right? They don't want – if we trade for him in June, the draft already happened, the picks are already used, and you can't help your team with the draft capital you got for Aaron Rodgers. So I could see it literally being the day or the night before the draft of Green Bay, like, all right, just give me whatever picks we've agreed to, because I got to use them tomorrow.
Now, do you think you think a player is involved in this trade package, like a Corey Davis? You think he's getting shipped off? He's staying? What's your opinion on that?
There's what I want and what I think is going to
happen. What do you want? Yeah, let me see what you want.
I 100% want to keep Corey Davis.
Yeah.
Right? A 6'3", 210-pound, and people will talk about what he isn't. He's also the guy that caught that 75-yard touchdown against Cleveland, right?
It was a blown coverage and he was wide open. I hope he would catch that.
Yeah, but my point is that he's fast enough that nobody
True. I'm just saying.
He was fast enough so nobody caught him.
No, he was.
Right? I've seen Elijah Moore and Garrett get caught from behind. And not that he's faster than them. I'm just saying.
Right.
If you get by him, take it to the house.
Got speed and he got height. That's a good combination.
And he blocks.
Yeah,
right?
and he blocks. Yeah.
So you have Lazard and Corey Davis blocking for Brees, Carter, and Bam Knight. My preference is to keep Corey. But honestly, it's almost a salary cap swap of Aaron Rodgers for Corey Davis. So could I see it working? Yeah. I mean, I could see it because we could use the extra cap room. And it looks like we have OBJ on the back burner. But at the same time, more talent is better than less talent. So if I can keep Corey Davis, I keep him. I mean, do you like Corey Davis? I know a lot of fans are iffy on him.
I like him when he's on the field. But that's the problem. He's not on the field a lot. So
yeah, it's like 7 or 8 games a year, right? If
you had to ask me, would I rather re-sign him or Odell? I'd rather have Corey Davis.
Yeah.
I'd rather take the chance on Corey.
Yeah. But what I think, and for everybody that's like on the OBJ, like I think it's easier for me to get over some of the antics that happen with the Giants, right? And I know we're New York fans, so we kind of saw that across the way and said, thank God I don't have to deal with that. And everyone talks about the circus that OBJ brings to town. I don't know if you guys remember the last time you saw OBJ, but sign me up for that circus. Okay?
Yeah, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, winning. He was collecting a Super Bowl ring last time we signed OBJ. So this whole thing that he's going to ruin a locker room, well, the last locker room he ruined won a Super Bowl. Okay, so give me that problem.
And he's older now. You know what I mean?
He's way older. He's
just matured a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and he's going to be sitting beside Aaron Rodgers in every room, right? And every chance, he's going to be milking, feed me the ball, make me look good. Like, he's going to be sucking up to the quarterback.
Now, carry on. Now I'm about to say bring up Carl Lawson, actually.
Well, give me a second to get to Lawson. One thing I will say, OBJ was the second fiddle, right, when he was with the Rams, right? Cooper Kupp was the guy.
Right.
He was the guy. So the whole idea that he comes in and feels like he needs the ball and needs to be the man, obviously we've seen where he was the second and third option. And having OBJ as a second, third, maybe even a fourth option on some plays when you got Garrett Wilson, Lazard, like there's not going to be a lot of teams that can match up with that. So, I mean, I think it would be a good move, especially like after the Moore trade, which we'll get to in a second. What was the question that popped up earlier on Carl Lawson?
I don't know, but I want to answer Marcus Bett's question real quick. Do you feel like right now, today, we have a better team than the Buffalo Bills?
What?
I would probably say no. Yeah.
We don't have Rodgers on the roster yet, so
that's tough, man. We did split with them 50-50 last year with Zach Wilson quarterback.
We almost swept.
We did. We did.
So a couple things on the Bills. I mean, they lost their defensive coordinator and they lost their defensive captain, Tremont Edwards, right? They lost Leslie Frazier. They lost some pieces. There's something going on there. I don't know if beef with McDermott and Frazier or what happened, but they lost one of the best defensive coaches in football. So they're going to be putting together some pieces. And there's also a lot of pressure on Josh Allen on why he can't get it done, right? Like, that's going to be, are we better than Bills on paper? I think most people would take the Bills over us right now. But
on paper?
Because they haven't seen us. Only because they haven't seen us. Like,
I just know it's going to be real.
Is not much better.
Right. Could you imagine if Lamar somehow ends up in New England? Because I did hear rumors about that. That'd be nuts. But anyway,
this division would be nuts. But honestly, who would you rather have at quarterback for one game? Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen? For one game.
Aaron Rodgers, actually. Yeah, I'll probably go Aaron Rodgers.
More clutch.
For one game, just clutch. Yeah.
For one game, right? We're going one season, not like the next 5 years. But if you were like one game right now, you're going to give me Aaron Rodgers with Garrett Wilson.
Like if your life depended on it. Your life depended on it. Who's your quarterback?
Yeah. And also you add the weapons. Like, I don't know that we don't have, especially if we sign OBJ, do we not have more weapons than the Bills? Like, I would take Breece Hall over their running back. I would take our wide receivers, even with Diggs. Would you not take Garrett Wilson, Lazard, Corey Davis, and OBJ, and Hardman?
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding? We got 5 receivers that can start.
Even if somebody gets injured, we're still good. That's the good thing.
We're still stacked before we even go into the draft. Their offensive line is better. Defensive line, I mean, guys, we kept Lawson and Franklin Myers and Johnson and Huff and Clemens and Quinnen. I mean, that's pretty good. Before we add another defensive tackle. Guys, that's pretty good, right? We got Quincy back. We got C.J. Mosley back. We got Sauce, DJ Reed, Michael Carter, the corner. I mean, other than safety, I mean, come on. The Jets are pretty stacked. That's the first time that I think I would ever say that out of my mouth. Like, the Jets are pretty stacked. Now, I mean, I would think we would go toe-to-toe, like with the Bills. Even in cold weather games up there, we're bringing in a cold weather quarterback that's been playing in Green Bay.
Yeah, exactly. Frozen tundra.
So, I saw in the comments about the Zeke. I mean, Zeke is toast. I don't.
Well, it was the first question. He went off this question when he said he was toast.
The real question is Breece Hall. When will he be a full go?
If he can't, Zeke over OBJ, and then he responded, no. Zeke is toast.
Yeah. I don't know if Zeke is toast. I don't know if that's fair.
Nah, but he's definitely used. He's like a car with about, you're getting over a little bit over 140K on the car.
100%. But when we brought in like guys like LaDainian, and we brought him in to be like the number 2 guy, like the guy who does blitz pickup, who does these like little sneaky catches out of the backfield, the guy who's just like real mature, who's seen it all, done it all. And I would ask the question, and usually I'm taking a shot at JR about this, but I'm really not.
What's up?
Like, no, I would ask you, like, what did Michael Carter show us last year?
The running back?
I think he has to prove.
He didn't show us. He didn't show us nothing. And then,
I think he has to show more.
Oh yeah. And
I mean, don't you think?
And I don't like his Instagram and all that, or whatever tweets and stuff coming out lately. That's kind of. But yeah, he needs to shut up and just show it, man. It's gonna be a tough room. So when he gets his time, he needs to shine. I don't know.
And to me, if you had Michael Carter, I mean, we carried 4 running backs last year, right? So to me, if you made Michael Carter beat out Zeke, like, why would that be the worst thing in the world? Like, why would that be an awful thing? And maybe Zeke is washed up. You're only getting him on like a 1-year, $2 million deal or something. He doesn't cost any money. To me, I got to see more. And I also don't know if any other team, like, think about this. If you weren't a Jets fan and you told me after Breece Hall, you got Michael Carter and Bam Knight.
Ty Johnson. Don't forget Ty, man. He been around.
And Ty Johnson. There isn't another team that looks at everybody after Breece Hall and is like, do you have a number 2 running back? And I don't know that we do. I think we got some guys that can play.
We got a bunch of like threes. We got one solid one and a bunch of threes. That's all right. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe somebody emerges. Maybe somebody has a great offseason. But if you're telling me we have Zeke for blitz pickup with those 4 or 5 wide receivers for Rodgers, and he can run a little bit, like, I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah.
All right, what else we got in the comments over there?
Man, the comments are rolling in pretty good, man. I like the comments.
They're blowing up. What do we got? I agree with Simon. I think he just said the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Simon also said it was crazy people wanted Carr over Rodgers. Was it really that crazy? Or
Carr is just like a long-term solution. Like that's like if you want something that's right in the Tannehill range, right? Do you think you have a roster that can win a Super Bowl with a Brad Johnson type? And Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl in Tampa, right? The Jets had top 5 D. So if you have adequate quarterback play, which is all we said we needed, we can make it work. We could, I don't know if he beats Mahomes. Does he beat Joe Burrow?
Who?
Does he beat Josh Allen?
Who? Rodgers? Oh, Carr.
No, Carr.
Oh, yeah. No. The odds are better with Rodgers.
Yeah, right?
At least for a year.
Defense has to play out of his mind. You got to be like, Sauce needs a pick 6 on Mahomes to beat him with Carr, right? You need something like that to happen. What else we got? Well, let's jump to the next subject. We got another.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to the next one real quick. What is the next subject we got on here? Oh, it's the trade. We lost a Jet player.
Yep, Elijah Moore, right?
Yeah.
And
who won that trade? Who won it? Somebody wants to know where's Dan at. Dan just commented in the group chat. He had an emergency that popped up, so we hope he's okay.
I know, I was trying to talk and read at the same time.
Right, and he sees us doing the show, so he says, "What's up, everybody?" But yeah.
And hopefully everyone's fine out there, right? I mean, I wish that for everybody, but especially someone going through an emergency, man.
Yeah, definitely.
And his family's doing well and everything. I hope he's okay. But we'll let him take care of his business.
Hey, Steven said, "Whoa, did you compare Carr to Brad Johnson? Did you?"
Yes, I did. Steven, I'm going to school you.
School him.
And we went over this when we were going for Carr, man. I mean, Carr's a guy whose stats are going to be higher than like Jim Kelly, right? This is a guy who's going to be top 15 all-time passing. He's going to be top 10 in yards. He could retire right now. And statistically, he's ahead of Troy Aikman and Steve Young right now. Right now. If he never took another snap in the NFL, his stats are already better than Steve Young. And he was pretty good. But Steve Young was okay.
Hey. All right. So, just not cut you off real quick. The Guru is in the building, so... I held it down for Guru for a while. The producer is out, and I'm going to let my man step in.
The real Danielson.
Fashionably late, of course. Taking care of some stuff. Flying out for hot Florida on Friday. I had to get some things done. And I looked at the clock, and I said, how in the world is it 8:30 already? This is impossible. So I'm really sorry about that, guys. Life just kind of got the best of me. Everything's good. Everything's okay. Just I need to get some things taken care of. So what are we talking about? Fill me in.
I think we had just transitioned over to the who won the Elijah Moore trade, but I think a good question that came up before we get there. There was a lot of talk there was people in the comments that were talking about there were some fans that wanted Carr over Rodgers. And, longevity, I think, was something that was considered, in that. Not necessarily that Carr is better than Rodgers, but he could be a long-term solution. And then the question becomes, can you win with a Brad Johnson type, with a Tannehill type, with a, top 3D, top 5D like the Jets had? Going up in a conference with a Joe Burrow, with a Mahomes, with a Herbert, with some of those guys, could you trust a Carr? And some Jets fans could trust a Derek Carr, and some couldn't. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I mean, I don't think it was wild to say that you would like a Derek Carr. But obviously Rodgers for one season is better than Carr, like for one season.
Yeah, I mean, 1-for-1 trade, I think, you have to go with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, again, he put up numbers that were similar to Derek Carr, if not better in certain categories, and that was with a bum thumb. And to me, less weapons as well. As you know, Christian Watson, he only came along late in the season as like the wide receiver group started coming together. They started winning. And with the Jets here, and you look at the weapons and the potential, And, I think with Elijah Moore, to be honest with you, that whole thing, we'll get to that in a moment, but I like Carr a lot. But to me, Carr was the safe pick, right? He always was the safe pick. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the Jets always do that. And I think you're going to need a little bit more than Derek Carr for the next couple of years. And I'm being honest about this. And I know this is kind of ridiculous from a Jets fan perspective, a team who hasn't had really good quarterbacks for the extent of their franchise's life. But when you look at the way the AFC shaping up, when you look at the potential of what this could be, the amount of quarterbacks in the AFC, even in your own division, you have three other teams that could possibly make the playoffs, depending on what the Patriots do on the rebound on this year. The Jets, they're going all out. And I think Joe Douglas tried to do that in getting Tyreek Hill the year before and getting even more dynamic weapons here. And I think that's why Mecole Hardman comes into play here as well. We'll get into that later. But Joe talked about having an explosive offense. 2 years ago, he spoke about this. He openly admitted that he missed out on Robbie Anderson and re-signing him. And I know people have their feelings about Robbie, but I think Robbie could have been better utilized had the quarterback room been a lot better. I think what we saw from McCown that 1 year, I think that wasn't a fluke from him. I felt like at any time Robbie can pop off with a big play down the field because McCown was the type of quarterback that can just lay it out like that. And after that point in time, it was really hard for the Jets to find consistency from the quarterback position. Even with Sam Darnold, talented McCown, he just didn't have that knack for throwing the ball down the field and still doesn't to this day. So for me, I don't think the Jets wanted to miss out on opportunities here. And I think bringing Aaron Rodgers in maximizes what you could bring to the table as far as pushing the ball down the field, the creativity outside of the pocket, the timing, getting rid of the football, the experience reading the defense. All these things come into play. It also comes into play in saving you time, which we've spoken about with the offensive line. That's another thing. We don't know. You can't fix every single position on your team and expect them to be all Pro Bowl, all pro guys at every position. And when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, like we've seen with many quarterbacks, even late in their careers, even with Peyton Manning and his bum neck when he could barely move. And let me remind you guys, that is not Aaron Rodgers. Those are two separate quarterbacks. Peyton Manning had an awful neck injury that really stiffened up his upper rotation mobility to be able to generate enough body to be able to twerk that body out and throw it. And as you know, when you throw footballs or baseballs, a lot of it also has to do with your legs as well and how much are you able to do when your neck is the way it is with Peyton Manning. So you had a decline in athletic performance, an injury, and an older quarterback. I think Aaron Rodgers is different. The thumb is the thumb. I don't think that's going to stop him. That'll be healed and ready to go. He's playing for – and here's another thing. Carr comes in, has to learn a new offense, regardless if it's similar here, similar there. We get it, whatever. It's still not the same as Aaron Rodgers basically playing in the same offense that he won 2 MVPs for. There is no comparison to that. This guy knows everything about the offense. He knows everything about the offense. And then you go ahead and bring a receiver in that he knows very well. And then you go ahead and you give him one of the most dynamic receivers in the NFL, at least the AFC right now. But I'm going to say the NFL, and that's Garrett Wilson. So I think just right there, when you combine all those things, just a year basically removed, 2 years, you want to say now, from the MVP, I think you can't miss out on that opportunity if you have a chance. And guess what? It worked. Because Aaron Rodgers said, I want to play for the New York Jets. So the Jets did their job. They got the pieces in place to be able to attract Aaron Rodgers from retirement or going back to Green Bay or whatever it was. Period. End of story. The Jets did their job. Now it's up to the Green Bay Packers to stop being so greedy and go ahead and move on from a player that they've said 3 or 4 times in the offseason, from owner to GM to coach, that they're moving on to the next stage. So stop being greedy. Get what you can for an aging guy. Okay, Brett Favre, you got a 3rd-round pick. All right, we're going to give you 2 second-round picks. One this year, one next year. Come on, man. Let's go. Let's get this done. Don't be like this, right? Because I posted this on the page, and I said this, Kevin, before I move on to my opinions on the Moore trade. If they keep playing games, and this even extends past the draft where they're like, okay, well, we're not going to get the 13th pick, but we're still not willing to trade him yet, I would say, Aaron, go back to Green Bay, man. Show up, go back to Green Bay and show up and just tell them, hey, man, I can't wait to be QB1 for the Green Bay Packers and competing with Jordan Love for the quarterback position next year. I mean, this is not what Green Bay wants. You don't want a young quarterback who has no experience having a legend like him behind him sitting on the bench making $60 million or competing with him, or sitting on the bench but looks better in practice, looks better in OTAs, looks better. And you know Rodgers is going to show up to all of them. He's going to be in the best shape of his life. He's got a chip on his shoulder right now, and that's even if he comes to the Jets. So Kevin, I mean, I'm just saying, man, for those that like Derek Carr, I like it too. But when you have a chance to get Aaron Rodgers, and considering you already have the offensive coordinator waiting, there's no question.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Joe's all in. And the plan was always to build a solid team, like top to bottom, not just quarterback, but overall team. I think we've drafted that way. We've hit free agency that way. We've hit the undrafted free agency class pretty heavy. And he's trying to build a solid roster top to bottom, so that when you have injuries, you have a Bam, night that you can pull up, that you have guys like Quan Alexander behind a Quincy Williams that can fill in and play. Same thing for safeties and corners. And he just tries to fill up the roster with as much talent and then lets it kind of play out. And the way the Jets are with injuries, it served us well bringing in like a Herbig, right? And we brought in Dwayne Brown came in during training camp.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Jets will be doing that again. You bring in an Aaron Rodgers. It's not a shock that he's going to want to bring in some of his players with him, just like Brady did, just like Manning did. But it's amazing to see people who've come to the Jets to try to get a Super Bowl ring. Like, that's not a thing that I think we've ever been able to say. Maybe when Parcells was here, but even then you'd say there were Parcells guys. Not necessarily ring chasing, but just guys that were Parcells guys, right, from around the league, right? He had his horse stables with Brian Cox, so Brian Cox came and signed with him. It was just like friends from around the league. But this is legit. Fill out your roster, surround Rodgers with as many weapons as possible, and people are going to talk about, well, why do we need 4 wide receivers? Why do we need 5 wide receivers? And I would say, have you watched the last few years? Like, has Corey Davis stayed healthy? Anywhere across the line. Even when Robbie was here, it was like Robbie was the one guy who stayed healthy and everyone broke down around him. So I like what we're doing. I like that we're filling out the roster. I think we'll get enough reps. And we're a team that can beat you in a lot of different ways, right? Hardman, Davis, and Wilson can score from anywhere on the field. They're all deep threats. Lazard, Conklin, Azuma, OBJ are going to move the chains. Yep. And you give yourself flexibility that keeps defenses off balance. It's one of those things where you see a Miami go get a Ramsey to go with Howard or whatever at quarterback. And you're like, cornerback. And you're like, well, that's fine. Who's guarding Wilson in the slot? You're not putting either one of them in the slot. And on the other slot is OBJ. So it's like, all right, well, you took Lazard and Corey Davis out. I mean, that's fine, right? And then we're going to spread you out, and we still run it with Breece Hall, right? We can have 4 wide receivers and still hand off to Breece Hall, right? And then your guys are so busy trying to cover the receivers. Who's covering Breece Hall out of the backfield? Who's covering Michael Carter? Who's covering Conklin? Guys, you don't want to be covering those guys. So you give Rodgers a chance to be successful. You give Rodgers a chance to win games on his own. And then I'd also ask the question, it gives your defense the flexibility to have a bad quarter, to have a bad and still have an offense that can keep up until they can plant their heels down and figure out what the other offense is doing and rebound from a bad quarter or a bad drive or a bad half, because you have an offense that can go right down and match them. And that is how you build a culture and a team camaraderie that can take a team to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely, and that's why it was so key to get Greg Zerline back because he had a couple misses last year, but he was put in some awful positions. But I think he showed more often than not that the guy can kick. And when you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers, like you said, that could push an offense down the field, even in stalled out drives, you can just get close to where that 50 to 55 range. So you can get in that 40 range, which I think you could do Aaron Rodgers-led offense. You stall out, you can go ahead and bring Greg out there, and he could still kick you and get you some points. And we spoke about that 6 to 9 point range, right? That those 3 field goals, those 2 to 3 field goals a game could really turn your entire team around. It really, really can, because if you can get 6 to 9 points and score 2 touchdowns a game, just 2 touchdowns, you're already ahead of the ball. You're ahead of what the Jets were doing last year, and they won 7 games, and they were pushing towards much more before the quarterback position fell off. And there's going to be more of that. There's going to be games pushing 3-4 touchdowns a game, 1 rushing touchdown, 2-3 touchdowns from Rodgers, maybe a defensive touchdowns or a punt return, Mecole Hardman, something like that. So you're going to have those types of moments. If you could add 3 field goals, 2 to 3 field goals a game, if you're not scoring touchdowns, I think you're putting yourself in a good position. And with Zach Wilson and some of these guys, the NFL is tough, man. And it's hard to move the ball down the field. And the Jets had a hard time crossing midfield and getting into opponents' territory and then capitalizing on it. It was really hard for them. I think with Rodgers, you probably capitalize. I think you don't go to Minnesota, even though I enjoyed watching Mike White. You don't go to Minnesota and stall out, throw all these yards, move the ball down the field, and then stall out in the red zone. I think with Aaron Rodgers, you probably get some of those in there. It's the timing throws. It's understanding defense, be able to check out, understanding your protections, where to slide, where to move, and still being able to do those things at a high level, which I think Aaron Rodgers could do. And so for me, I'm just super excited. Can't wait for them to get this done. Because listen, guys, it's not important that it gets done anywhere, anytime soon, because you got to remember, this is why it even gives us more time and it gives us more of an edge as a team over Green Bay, because we have the coordinator. So the install is going to be really basic. He just has to get to know his receivers, which I'm sure in his time, he knows the routes. He knows what's best. Lazard's there. He can teach these guys little things that Aaron likes to do. So when he gets there, they can be ready to rock and roll. But when your quarterback already knows the offense, then, man, it's going to be so much easier. Go ahead and keep waiting. So for me, I can't see that question yet. But, yeah, the Moore trade, who won that? A lot of people saying that Joe Douglas lost his trade, which is a little bit weird to me. Because I just don't understand. Like, you don't get 2nd-round picks for nothing, first off. And you certainly don't get the same value of pick that you got for a player that you already just drafted. Usually you lose value for a player unless he becomes an all-pro type of a player. And even then, sometimes, depending on age, you're not going to get that type of pick compensation. With Elijah Moore, you had a guy that I think his stock has fallen since he's been drafted. You have a guy who I think if he would have been quiet last season, it would have demanded even a little bit more, where maybe the Jets wouldn't have to part with a 3rd. Maybe they could have did like a 4th in Elijah, or maybe even less than that. But to me, Elijah clearly showed that he wasn't the same difference maker that a Wilson was on the team. He wanted to get off the team 2 or 3 times last year. So I don't understand why people are mad in general anyway about the trade when the guy didn't want to be on the team as it was. Was I excited to see Aaron Rodgers throw to him? Yeah, but am I excited if the Jets get OBJ just a little bit more? Yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to be a little bit more excited if Aaron Rodgers is throwing to Odell Beckham, honestly. And I think anybody you put in the slot would really be good with Aaron Rodgers, right? And then we don't know what Moore would have been like, considering that he was complaining about touches last year, but now you have to deal with Lazard. The tight ends are going to be more in the play. Like Kevin said, what do you do when Breece Hall is, out in the flats? You're going to hit him. So and then do you want him kind of chirping when there's a Hall of Fame quarterback there? So you're not saying he was going to do any of these things, right? But I'm just saying when you add it all up, and you look at it, and then you go, well, I've seen my GM get really good value guys in the second round. I think I'm going to trust my GM that he's going to get another player of value or in the second round, or maybe now we don't have to give up the 13th pick to get Aaron Rodgers because we can have more flexibility with our second round picks, and would be, maybe we do give up a first round pick next year, not this year, but we're a little bit more happy to do that because now we have 2 back-to-back second round picks we could play with this year. So there's a lot of options by trading more that I think benefits the Jets in so many ways. It frees up to get a better slot receiver. It frees up to be able to maybe get help on the offensive line. And would you tell me, anybody in there, if Joe picks an offensive lineman in the second round, just saying if he does, you wouldn't trade an offensive lineman for Elijah Moore, considering what we've been through, the last 5 years at this point? I think we would trade Elijah Moore for that.
What if I told you we traded a second round pick in Elijah Moore for Aaron Rodgers? Because that's essentially what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean that was getting to that last point too, is that basically all of this is done to secure Aaron Rodgers. If that is the end result, then I'm happy there too. So I think I've given you several reasons why I believe the Jets won this trade while dealing a guy who does have talent, and I think he's going to do well in Cleveland, absolutely for sure. But I just don't think he was the right fit for the Jets. Listen, the Jets are on fire right now, and they have really bold personalities, and Garrett Wilson and Sauce, and there's a lot of guys on that team that are fiery. And I just don't think another guy in Wilson who's complaining about catching the ball on a winning streak is going to vibe so well. And again, to me, if the Jets can get OBJ, even coming off the second surgery, I'm taking him over Moore all day. And you're also telling me that you have a player that Rodgers wants to play with, and it does matter. Yes, it does. And I think if we do get OBJ, you'll see a clear difference of a guy, and you'll see the difference between the two in Elijah Moore and Odell. And I think Odell, a lot of people have to get that Giants Odell out of their head. I think if you look at his play and how he's acted and how he's been, I think he's been humbled for sure. From the trade from the Giants to his stay in Cleveland, ultimately to working his way with the Rams to winning a Super Bowl. I just think for him, it's different now. I think it is about the chips, and I think that's why you're seeing a player trying to go to places where he could win a chip. You talk about the Cowboys, the Jets. You see some of these teams that are good teams, right? Like right on the verge right there. He wants to win a chip. Like Kevin said, we're kind of getting to become now an attractive destination. And you got to give credit to Joe Douglas because he drafted Sauce, who has a crazy, perfect personality for New York, and backed it up with his play on the field, being not only rookie of the year, but the number 1 rated corner as well. Jeez. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then Garrett Wilson and all this type of stuff. If the Jets get Aaron Rodgers here, it's just going to be blockbuster. If the Jets win games here with Aaron Rodgers and Sauce and Wilson and these guys, the city is going to be on fire for the Jets, man. They just are. When the Jets are good, everything is good. And I'm not even saying that from just a Jet fan perspective. Teams like the Mets, the Jets, the Rangers, when they're really, really good, the city is just on fire because there are starving fan bases, and they go above and beyond when their teams are good. So for me, I don't think he lost, but ultimately we can't judge this trade, Kevin, until Moore goes to Cleveland, we get Aaron Rodgers, and we see how it all turns out.
For me, there's a bunch of variables playing this. I mean, Elijah Moore was drafted number 37. Right. He was a high second round pick. He's never had more than 40 catches, and we swapped him out for 43. Right. He's done nothing since, regardless of what he puts on tape, guys, he's done nothing in the NFL. 40. If we traded for a second round pick for a 40 catch, career high is 40 because he has a season where he didn't get 40. You would be losing your mind if it was the other way.
Right.
We traded a second for a guy who can't get more than 40 catches in a season. Dude, you would be trashing Joe Douglas on Twitter right now. And we only think how much Tony lost value for the Giants, right? Like his value, like the Kansas City got him for nothing, right?
Right.
And he only lost 6 slots in draft position in 2 years of doing nothing. And the second piece to that is who's your slot receiver this year? Garrett Wilson. We're replacing Elijah Moore with Garrett Wilson because right now you got Lazard outside and Corey Davis. We'll see if he's traded. Salah says he won't be, but seeing is believing. It might be posturing. It could be posturing. We don't know. But you could have Corey Davis, Lazard, and I just said, right, Moore has 80 career receptions, 80. And Hardman the last 2 years had 84. Now Jets fans will jump in the comments and be like, well, Hardman was playing with Mahomes. He's playing with Aaron Rodgers now. I mean, so you just got rid of Elijah Moore for a guy who has more receptions in the last 2 years. And honestly, Hardman's not even taking Elijah Moore's spot. Garrett Wilson is. So we got Hardman, and it was literally the next day, right? I think it was the day after we signed Hardman, where it's like, all right, so we got Wilson in the slot and a backup slot. And what happens when you have Hardman and Garrett Wilson and Lazard on the field at the same time, right? You got deep threats, you got possession receivers, you got tight ends.
Everything.
And it was one of those things where Joe Douglas stocked the cabinet enough to say, all right, we're going to have to lose a second-round pick this year. He already knows he's given up a second-round pick. Anyone who watched the coaches meeting and stuff, I mean, I feel like Joe Douglas and the Packers GM kind of know about what they're going to give up. I think they kind of alluded to that in their interviews, that there might be some finagling on the details on if Rodgers retires, who gives what and who gets what. And that's a just-in-case clause. But I think the Jets knew, I'm going to add, they probably know what's going on with OBJ. He's coming or going. They got to work Rodgers' contract to finalize a couple of these last-minute things like an OBJ. But OBJ was just with Salah and Joe Douglas yesterday. The Lazard deal's done. The Hardman deal's done. Garrett Wilson's on a rookie contract. And just what you said, right? We know the Jets need to upgrade certain positions. Center.
Yep.
Depth at tackle. Probably need another defensive tackle to rotate with the Solomon Thomases, the Quinnens. We know Franklin Myers goes inside. Let's throw one more guy to give a good 4-man rotation because we lost Shepard, we lost Rankins. And he's like saying, hey, I'm not done with just free agency. I'm not done with just these trades. I got to keep stockpiling youth in there. And I won't even be shocked if we trade down from 13 just to get some more picks, right?
Yeah.
Let's get some depth at other positions, depth at safety, maybe another corner. We're bringing back guys like Bryce Hall are still on the roster, right?
Yeah.
So the Jets are loaded. And that's the one other thing that I'll throw out there is I've seen people say, what are we going to do on special teams if we have OBJ who doesn't play special teams and Hardman who's only got Bryce Hall, Will Parks. We're going to draft some more linebackers. Like,
you guys like looking for the
this
complaints.
is the way. You're looking for complaints. 100%. And that's the perfect quote, right? We got rid of Moore because we already got 5 receivers that are as good as him.
Right.
Like every receiver I just said, Corey Davis, Lazard, OBJ, Wilson, Hardman, 5 wide receivers as good as Elijah Moore.
Right.
So trade him and upgrade offensive line, defensive tackle, maybe a safety, maybe a linebacker, and continue to build the pieces we need to fortify. Joe is doing this the right way. The last point I would make is the importance of run blocking.
Mm-hmm.
We just traded a 5'9", 170-pound receiver, right? Like Lazard, Corey Davis. Are you seeing themes in here? Even Wilson is like 6 foot.
Yeah.
Like these are guys who will make an impact and help Breece Hall and Carter and Knight open up the offense for Rodgers. So was he a system fit? Would he probably have been fine? Probably. But obviously, Joe Douglas, Saleh, and Hackett sat down, and with the pieces that they added, they were okay making this move because they know they need a center, another tackle.
Yep.
So, like, let them keep moving the chess pieces around the board.
I agree 100%. Like, and you know, for everyone talking about that third round pick, man, listen, if I asked you, would you trade a second round pick for Elijah Moore, you would say no. So the third round pick is that's the kicker to get you back into the second round. So that's what you guys don't understand, man. The Jets can't get back into that second round without that third round kicker. And I'm more impressed with what Joe Douglas could do with 42 and 43 than a third rounder. I mean, you've got back-to-back picks. You know how valuable that could be in a trade package, even if he traded down or up or all around. You don't know what he's capable of doing when this is a guy that maneuvered the draft in a way to go up and get AVT when you thought they were done, to get Jermaine Johnson when you thought they were done, to get Breece Hall when you thought they were done. Like, I mean, you didn't think you were going to be able to pull that kind of talent, like Michael Clemens and all these. I mean, the list goes on and on. Everyone wants to keep bringing up his first draft with Michael Perrine and all these guys. Like, guys, you don't grow as a player. You don't grow as a GM. You don't grow from first to second to third draft. I think we're seeing a pattern here of growth as a GM from the drafting perspective in his room. And now that he actually has his own coach, which he knows that picked his own coordinators, it's a better, more flowing room where it's not the one guy says all, or like it's not a room anymore of guys who were from the former regime. This is now Joe's room. And as each year goes by and the Jets get better and better, which they have been doing, I think you're seeing the talent and the depth, the stuff that you saw with the Eagles and the Ravens for so long. These are good problems to have when you have too many players, when you have Trader Joe on the market who has a way of getting things that he needs for his football team, because you know he's going to get good value for his players. And to me, trading a second and a third, Elijah Moore and a third round pick to move up into the second round pick to get you a pick that's right next to the one you currently have is super valuable for your fifth best receiver on your football team. And that brings in the Mecole Hardman trade as well. Mecole Hardman is a good, solid player. And everyone keeps saying, well, he's injury prone. No, he's not. He missed a couple games in his last year, and he even said it on his Twitter. Like, where are these people getting this from? Like, I don't understand it. This is a guy that was drafted to play, to take over Tyreek or play alongside Tyreek. This is a guy that has speed in the return game. This is a guy that could play the position that you 100% need, which is most likely going to be your third to fourth wide receiver. It is more depth for your football team that has been absolutely ravaged over the last few years from all facets of their team. Like Kevin said, all along the line, you just call them out, and they've all been injured, from receiver to tight end, to offensive lineman, to quarterback, running back. So the Jets are just stacking talent that fits with the current group that they have. And so I think that Joe won the trade, in my personal opinion. You guys got to get off the third round hang up when you just got a second round pick. Hey, what's better, a third round pick or a second round pick? A second round pick. And the kicker was a receiver who could have been one of your biggest headaches next year and is not any more talented than anybody else on your team. So for me, it was valuable. He's more valuable, Elijah Moore, on the Cleveland Browns right now than he is on the New York Jets. And that's just a fact. So if he goes out there and has an 11 or 1,200 yard season, you can't look at it and say, well, that's 1,100, 1,200 yards that the Jets didn't have, because that's not how it works. Because if you were to look at the Jets next year, maybe Garrett Wilson has 1,400 yards. Lazard has 900. Conklin and CJ have 600. The backs have 500. Mecole Hardman has 700. Like, so it's spread out in a different way that helps your ball club. And this helps the Jets in many facets because, again, it could cover a need that is more important than Elijah Moore. It could give you trade bait to get Aaron Rodgers and kind of push those bigger picks into the previous year. Like, what if the Jets go, okay, we give you 2 second. Now, I wouldn't personally do this because I don't think the Jets have to, but you could say, I can give you 2 second-round picks, and we just call it square and even for Aaron Rodgers, just square it up right there if you want to. But I don't think that they have to do that necessarily. They can do something where they give 1 second-round pick or a fourth, and then have it escalate to a second and first the next year if he comes back, if the Jets make the Super Bowl, this type of thing. Maybe the Jets, there's another player that, Green Bay is eyeing that the Jets, when you have a team full of depth, maybe there's a player they've been eyeing that could be included in the trade as well. But either way, the Packers are kind of stuck. The Jets should get their quarterback. And once Aaron Rodgers finally the quarterback of the New York Jets, and you can line up this roster and look at it spread out, there's not many holes, guys. I think the Jets have done a fantastic job of building the roster. The playoff run didn't go the way we wanted to. This was a 2-win team 2 years ago. Let's wake up. We were one miracle away, just one bad half away from having Trevor Lawrence. That's how bad we were at that time. Since then, we have built an excellent running back and receiver room, an excellent tight end room, a rotating defense that looks great, a secondary that's played exceptional. I think you can even look at Mosley and say he's done an excellent job reviving his career after injury. I mean, you just look at it down the line. We've gotten better as a football team. Now we got the quarterback. Sky's the limit, guys. The only thing that could derail the Jets, like most teams, is injury, and that's it. So, do we got another topic on there, JR, before we get going?
I think we got to wrap it up, man. We hit curfew.
The curfew time it is, guys. Listen, it's kind of messed up that we didn't get Calais Campbell on a 1-year deal, but he may have been chasing, I don't know, the deal, what he got for the Falcons. It could have been something where he was just looking for the best 1-year deal, kind of prove it to maybe either retire or maybe get a 2-3 year deal in the future, which I don't know if he's going to be able to get that. But the Jets, there's still Jones there. The center from Tennessee is still an option. He's still on the table, as we talked about before. And I'm going to say we spoke about it here first on Jets Guru, that we talked about Jones, because when we were doing our free agents, nobody was talking about Jones. And we were talking about Jones, saying the connection not only to the offensive line coach, but also to the game day quarterback or offensive play coach. So I'm super excited about what Joe is going to do. If he shores up this offensive line in free agency, then who knows what can happen in the draft? I mean, maybe a new pass rusher. I mean, who knows? I mean, it could be anything. Another linebacker. I mean, if you can fix this offensive line in free agency. So, hey guys, I'm really excited. Sorry for being late. It happens. We're not going to be around next week. We're not going to have an episode. If Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Jets in any way, we will jump on. So don't worry about that. Tune into Jets Guru. I think Victor Green, our old buddy, one of my idols there from the early Jets teams, tuned in, unless that's a fake Victor Green account. Victor, if you're watching the show, please join us on Jets
that's
Guru.
real. That's real.
Yeah, Victor, join us on Jets Guru, man. We'd love to have you. About the old Jets. It would be excellent to have more players, more legends, more former Jet players on. And it helps us out. We don't get paid. We don't have sponsors. We don't have any of that. We just come out here, 2 working guys with families, giving it all to the Jets Guru cause. And we got a producer that puts together an excellent show, all the layouts. We're just putting our heart into this, and we just want to talk Jets football, no drama. So appreciate the support, guys. Thank you, Simon, for tuning in, as always. Mr. Kevin Robbins, as always. Mr. JR behind the scenes, appreciate you. Jets Guru out.